Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. Because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD and working on a product to help people overcome these problems because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
Forget frequently asked questions.
Common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius Podcast. My guest today is Chris Burres. He's been around before. He's working on a molecule called ESS60. So we're going to talk about his work with MyVitalC, which is a company he owns that has a bunch of products. He was very gracious to send me a whole bunch of them. We were just talking offline, and I didn't realize that he did products for pets and for people. So I was telling him that I felt, quite a bit better. It took me, maybe 6 or 8 hours. There's a lag for me in the day, but I felt better taking his products. And then he reminded me that he had some for my pets. So we'll do an introduction here, and then we'll start with pets first, and then go to people. So welcome back, Chris.
Richard, thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited that you've seen some positive things. sometimes the results from our product are pretty subtle. That's usually true until people say, hey, we get some small percentage of customers like, I'm not really noticing anything. I'm going to stop. And then when they stop, they're like, okay, now I really notice what the difference is. And as we discussed on the last podcast, our most consistent testimonials, people typically take it in the morning. They report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. It's very interesting that you're seeing kind of an improvement on, say, focus and energy, and correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, kind of about 6 hours after you take it. It'd be interesting to see if maybe you're more like for your physiology, right? Everybody's an N of one. Maybe it makes sense for you to take it kind of towards the latter part of the day and then see what impact that might have the next day, just to play around with, when you're timing it.
Yeah, I don't want to have it too late because then I don't want it to adversely affect my sleep if it peps me up. But I can try that and see how it goes. It does help. I definitely felt, like I said, clearer, more awake, just calmer. Not that I would be sleepy at that time, but I just felt better than I did before, I could tell.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that is typically what we see, when you, and we can probably jump into some of this again, just a refresher, but when you start reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, then you're going to have benefits, really across the board.
Oh, I don't even know what the recommended dose is, but I take 2 of the capsules and stuff, or I tried, some of the liquid, and I don't want to do too much or too little, but we can get into that.
Yeah, typical serving is about 1 teaspoon or one of those ampules, right? You're probably taking those plastic ampules. It's one of those per day. I take more, right? So you and I are probably fairly close. I actually take about 1.5 teaspoons of our MCT oil in my coffee. MCT is really good for brain health, really good for brain focus. It actually shuttles that ESS60 molecule. We believe it shuttles that ESS60 molecule right up into the brain where it can help the mitochondria in your brain. That's where we believe kind of focus and energy comes from. So I've got 1.5 teaspoons of that in my coffee. And then while that's blending, right, because MCT is an oil, coffee is water-based, so you got to blend those. While that's blending, I take 1.5 teaspoons of our olive oil product, and that's kind of my regimen for the day.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I wanted to get into the pets because just for a start, because you mentioned it. Years ago, we had a dog that was like 11 years old. He really wasn't doing well. And my wife started making bone broth for me and him and everyone else. And it literally brought him back to life. It was pretty cool because I don't think he would have lived much longer, but he lived like another 3 or 4 years. And I felt really bad that he was in that state and he was so much better, but I was happy for him. He was so much better. So I figured that these products would maybe, get similar results. What did you guys create and what is the feedback from pet owners?
Well, if you think about the history, right? So the molecule was discovered in 85. The three scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996. So a short 11 years. They thought the molecule would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. In that study, instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case, it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So you just start thinking about how does this experimentation work? Typically it may start in something like C. elegans, little worms, and then it may go up into rats, and then it may go up into larger mammals. And so the kind of concept that this would be good potentially for pets was really fairly straightforward. And then we thought, hey, maybe we can enhance it. We can add some bacon essence to the dog flavor, to the dog product, and then we can add some salmon essence to the cat product. And, thus our dog and cat versions were born. And it's basically our main oil, right? So the ESS60 molecule with olive oil, and then with that essence of either bacon or salmon. We do get some questions every now and then, mostly from men. It's like, hey, can I have that bacon one? Because the bacon sounds good. And it is absolutely safe to consume. I would consume the bacon one. And it really is, it kind of works out to be the same price as kind of the full bottles. Comes in a smaller bottle at a slightly lower price, but on a per volume basis, it's the same price. And so, yeah, we've got just, stunning testimonials. And you kind of shared that your cats and dogs are fairly young, right? So you're not really noticing, or maybe they're right at that point where you're starting to notice them slow down. That's where we get, in even older dogs and cats, that's where we really get these amazing testimonials. Because it's, we don't know how, like your testimonial at this point is, I feel better kind of towards the later afternoon, early evening when maybe I wasn't feeling as good. Well, we have no way for the cat or dog to communicate that to us. I'm pretty sure they're feeling it, but they don't express it. When you get to these older dogs, I remember early on, we had a video of, and I think it's a Labrador, but some of these bigger dogs will have hip dysplasia. So this dog was just struggling to walk across the kitchen, started on the product. I think it was within a week. We got the second video, and now the dog's walking without any kind of displays of hip dysplasia. Absolutely amazing. I am going to throw out a disclaimer. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. As I share kind of testimonials, be they pets or otherwise, just assume it won't happen for you. Kind of listen to what we have to say here, dig into the research, and we'll have a link for you at the end if it is something that you're interested in trying. So you've got that amazing testimonial related to it's actually a video with hip dysplasia. One testimonial that resonates with me is we used to have to carry our dog downstairs to go to the bathroom. Now the dog bounds upstairs, right? And this kind of sounds like the bone broth situation with your 11-year-old dog. So I was going to turn it back over to you. I do have some more testimonials that are pretty cool, but I wanted to turn it back over to you.
Well, are you getting any data about the pets that's different from people that's helping you corroborate what's going on, or no?
Before we continue, I've been personally funding the Finding Genius podcast for 4.5 years now, which has led to 2,700 plus interviews of clinicians, researchers, scientists, CEOs, and other amazing people who are working to advance science and improve our lives and our world. Even though this podcast gets 100,000 plus downloads a month, we need your help to reach hundreds of thousands more worldwide. Please visit findinggeniuspodcast.com and click on Support Us. We have 3 levels of membership from $10 to $49 a month, including perks such as the ability to see ahead in our interview calendar and ask questions of upcoming guests, transcripts of podcasts you're interested in, the ability to request specific topics or guests, and more. Visit findinggeniuspodcast.com and click Support Us today. Now back to the show.
I think I shared on the last podcast something that was pretty profound, right? So one of our understandings is that we are positively impacting inflammation. And when we say that, we have to be very careful because the FDA has very specific thoughts about talking about chronic inflammation. And that is, they believe that chronic inflammation is speaking directly to the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of old age, right? So when you're talking about chronic inflammation, you are in fact talking about cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease. So if I were to say something as generic as we address inflammation, what the FDA hears is we cure cancer and we cure arthritis and Alzheimer's, which obviously we cannot say. So we have to be very careful. What the FDA does allow us to say is that we address inflammation as it's related to exercise-induced inflammation. So we've all had that tough walk, maybe just that good workout, and woken up the next day and felt that inflammation in our bodies. We absolutely address that type of inflammation. So that is kind of in the realm of things that we talk about as it pertains to humans regularly. There is a study, it's a peer-reviewed published research paper on beagles and inflammatory markers in beagles, where the molecule has significantly reduced the inflammatory markers in beagles. And that parallels, I think I shared last time, but I'm so excited, I'm going to share it again. We had this doctor come up to us, Dr. Lane Young came up to us at it was the A4M, so American Academy of Anti-Aging, and they had an event called Longevity Fest. We had a booth there, and this Dr. Lane Young came up to us, and I actually took a video of this because it was so impactful to me. He said, Chris, I don't care if you're male, female, pre-surgery, post-surgery, if you have cardiovascular disease, otherwise healthy, your product will take elevated hsCRP numbers, and I'll kind of talk about what that is, but it will take it down into normal ranges within 4 to 8 weeks. Now, hsCRP stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It is, in fact, one of the inflammatory markers they were looking at in that beagle study. And high sensitivity C-reactive protein is most typically used to kind of understand your status as it relates to cardiovascular disease. So elevated hsCRP numbers will kind of be an indication of elevated concerns about cardiovascular disease. Dr. Young actually gave me a very specific example. He said he had one client who was sitting at 9 with his hsCRP. His protocols weren't able to move it. And then by putting him on our product, he was able to reduce the hsCRP from 9 to 0.9, and under 1 is in normal ranges.
Great.
Now, yeah, and I didn't realize how profound this was until I had a conversation with an oncologist who was saying, listen, if you have an hsCRP of 9, we assume you have cancer until we prove otherwise, right? So this is your body is in distress and it's popping out these inflammatory markers, those in terms of chronic, right? Inflammation is good. Like, you don't want to quell all inflammation. Inflammation is your body's healing process for healing. If you get some sort of cut or burn, it'll get inflamed, it'll get swollen. That's your body sending the right chemicals to that spot to heal. So you don't want to put necessarily ice on a wound because it'll heal slower. But when you start thinking about chronic inflammation, you really do want to have some sort of handle on that. And a good way to look at that and what we can speak about is a positive impact on hsCRP. I can tell you, since we last spoke, we attended the conference is called the Health Optimization Summit in Austin. We had a booth there, and we got really lucky. Right next to us was a booth. The guy running the booth, his name is Bob. He is an Apple engineer and has put his kind of focus, so really talented, put his focus on an inflammation test that you can have at home. His website is like corehealth.com. And basically you do a finger prick, you take a drop of blood and you put it inside of a capillary tube that, kind of sucks the blood up. And then you stick it vertically so gravity can act on it. And there's a rate that your blood cells separate from your plasma. And that rate is actually dependent on your inflammatory status, right? So if you are pretty inflamed, it takes a long time for that to separate. If you are not inflamed, and I may have that backwards, but anyway, the rate at which it separates does have an indication on inflammation. I took this test and I showed up he has kind of like a biological age component of the results, and it had me at 20 plus years younger than my chronological age. So that's speaking to the inflammatory markers in our body. And, there's a word called inflammaging. It's kind of a confluence of inflammation and aging, and that's how important doctors think about inflammation as it relates to aging. So yes, there's a study in a peer-reviewed published research paper on beagles and reducing inflammatory markers in beagles. What hip dysplasia is going to be suffering from is chronic inflammation. And so if you can address that, then that might explain what happened in the video. That would explain the dog being comfortable going down the stairs and, no longer needing to be carried down the stairs, but also, in fact, bounding up the stairs. So it's pretty profound what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's great that you got that personal result. And again, you're seeing a positive effect in everyone that's using it. Sounds like. Does anyone tell you it doesn't do anything to them?
And we do get that from time to time. And I'm in such a unique position because I didn't go back in my lab and create some sort of supplement that I'm bringing to the market and I'm totally vested in it. I've been manufacturing this crazy ESS60 molecule since 1991. I was selling it to research institutions around the world so that they could do research on it. And they would, typically do like ink, battery ties, or in photocells. Then this crazy paper comes out where the test subjects live 90% longer than the control group. And I'm kind of thrown into this arena of health and wellness. I've written a book called Live Longer and Better. It's about the discovery of the molecule and its kind of journey into the health space. It's about my journey into the health space and kind of my growing expertise as a longevity and health scientist focused on the science behind longevity. And so all of this kind of leads up to now I'm in the supplement business. I actually kind of fundamentally believe that people get into the supplement industry one of two ways, typically. So the first way is somebody wakes up one day, they decide they want to be wealthy, they decide they're going to do it with supplements, and I have no problem with people being wealthy. It's just not how I ended up here. The other is somebody has their own kind of health challenges, or maybe the health challenges of a loved one. They do the research, they roll up their sleeves, they, figure out a protocol, and now they want to save the world. And hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I am not against people saving the world. It's just not how I ended up here. I ended up manufacturing this molecule, ended up in the study, and now I'm just trying to be a good shepherd to get this information and this molecule into the hands of as many people as possible. So I kind of say all that to kind of focus on, if somebody says this doesn't work for them, it's not a personal, there's no part of me that takes it as a personal attack. We're still collecting data on this, right? The data keeps coming in and it's screaming fairly loud and clear, but we are still collecting data. And there are probably some group of people who this doesn't really have an impact on. I think what mostly happens though is, if you think about our most consistent testimonial, it is that they take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And the reality is, if they're getting better sleep that night, then everything is better, right? Your mental, physical, and emotional well-being is better. But the problem with better sleep as, a great resource for you to kind of live a healthier life is that it's kind of subtle, right? Like we all kind of get 1 hour extra or 1 hour less of sleep per night, unless you're like Brian Johnson, right? Who we know he goes to sleep, I'm sure it's published somewhere, at exactly a specific time. He wakes up at exactly a specific time. Unless you're that, then you're getting a little bit less and a little bit more sleep. And so we have situations where people are on the product, they don't recognize that they're sleeping better. They don't recognize that even potentially sleeping longer. And that cascades, right? Better sleep cascades into mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And so they'll say, well, I haven't really noticed anything. And then they stop the product and they're like, wait a minute, like everything is different. Right. And if you're thinking about our BOSS theory, right, buffering oxidative stress system, where we're reducing the negative impact that reactive oxygen species from mitochondria have. So reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. If you're doing that, then you should have positive benefits throughout the entire body. And that's what we get most of the time. So, I mean, I can even share, we actually had a lady next door at our office. One day she was talking about, I may have mentioned this on your podcast. I was going back and re-listening to it, but she mentioned, she's going through some oncology stuff and that she really couldn't even afford all the oncology, which I was like, is, very disconcerting. So I gave her a couple bottles, and like 10 days later, I stopped in and was like, hey, how you doing? I can't remember her name. I need to kind of pull her up and check on her actually. But hey, how are you doing? Have you noticed anything with my product? And she's like very kind of disappointed, like depressed that she's going to have to break to me bad news, right? And she's like, Chris, I got to be honest, I haven't really noticed anything. And again, like that doesn't bother me at all. I'm just collecting data. But I asked her, so how's your sleep? And her eyes got big like Bambi, because she was like, oh my God, I've been waking up at 5:30 every morning. And she's former military. And so that's the time, she's supposed to be getting up, and she just hadn't realized. And the reason, piggyback this other testimonial, this is with my business coach. My business coach said for 50 years, he needed the alarm clock to wake up. When he started taking MyVitalC, he no longer needs the alarm clock. And I can tell you that when he doesn't have the product, he'll share with me, hey, I need more product because I need my alarm clock again. And that takes about 10 days, right? When he runs out, about 10 days afterwards, he starts to need the alarm clock. He gets back on the product. He no longer needs the alarm clock. So we know we're having an impact on sleep, and sleep can be subtle. So that's an extremely long way of answering your question, I think.
No, it's good to hear the specific testimonials and results from some people,
One guy, he sent me a note and he was like, hey, I got to share this story with you. You've got to find this video that I found and like use it in your marketing material. And basically he's a physician and he was taking the product and like all kind of good, quote unquote, good biohackers, he was taking more than double what is recommended, right? I think you are too, right? If you're taking 2 of those, that's right at double of what is recommended. It's fine. There's no health challenges there. You will go through it faster, and just depending on, where your status is, like if your body is dealing with anything physiologically, 2 might not be necessary. So, but as soon as you go through 2, that doubles your cost, right? Because this is something that we really believe you should be taking on a regular basis. And so he's dealing with this double cost. Actually, I think he was like triple cost. He's dealing with like triple cost and then not really noticing that much. And he finally found this video and the guy said, listen, this ESS60 molecule it's a slow burn, right? It's something that you should be taking on a regular basis, time after time. And I actually didn't share that piece about Dr. Young. I'll come back to it. But it's something that has this slow building effect, and it can be subtle, but it is also profound, right? Like, so that may be a bit of an oxymoron. I forgot to mention, so Dr. Lane Young said, hey, HSCRP numbers into normal range. It also improves HRV, which is heart rate variability, and sleep by 20 to 60%. And he said across the board. And he finished that video. Sometimes I forget and I go watch the video and I'm like, oh yeah, he did say that. He says it is something that he believes he should keep in the break room at his office, meaning every one of his employees should have access to this because it is so profound. And I actually have one more testimonial if you want me to jump into it that also has kind of a parallel. So there's a guy, Kyle Zadowski. He is the CEO of OsteoStrong. OsteoStrong is a global franchise that helps people build bone density. This is not an easy thing to do, right? So his focus, right, it's why it's called OsteoStrong. His focus is, typically women, but women and men, potentially with osteoporosis, osteopenia, and he helps them build bone density. And the program's amazing. I've actually gone through it. I just did a DEXA scan to understand my personal bone density, and then I'm going to go back and continue to do another 2 months and revisit my bone density. Anyway, he sent this testimony. I'm just going to read it. This is actually out on Google. He said, we started taking MyVitalC about a month ago, and the biggest change we've seen was with a puppy my son brought home. The little pug was in rough shape. By the way, he shared this story personally with him. He's like, my son, who's in his 20s, brought home not just 1 pug, but 2. He probably should have asked. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's living in the house. But anyway, he said he was the runt of the litter and had water retention on the surface of his brain. His balance was really bad, constantly shaking his head, and could only spin in circles. It's like he was perpetually dizzy. The vet didn't expect him to live long. The day after my son brought him home, our shipment of MyVitalC showed up, which included a product for dogs. We've given him 2 to 3 doses a day since then, and he is about 80% better. He runs in straight lines and playing with other dogs. When taken to the vet this past week, she said his improvement seems like a miracle. And what Kyle went on to say, that kind of has parallels with what Dr. Young said, is he was like, Chris, I will never not take your product.
Even with the double negative. Well, that's cool. Well, good. That's amazing. What of the products you have though, doesn't matter if it's the ampule liquid, there are there ones that have it acts faster, the pills versus the liquid, or recommend.
So we typically sell in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. We do have capsules, which are good for traveling, right? Our basic bottle is 4 ounces, so that'll get picked up by the TSA if it's in your check-in. And then we have the ampules that we sent you, and those are also good for TSA. TSA doesn't mess with those. Our dog products are based on the olive oil product. Our capsules, they're actually gel caps. Our gel caps are also based on the olive oil product. So most of it's olive oil based. When people say, hey, Chris, I see you've got olive oil, you've got avocado oil, you got MCT oil, which one should I start with? We always recommend the olive oil, and make that recommendation for 2 reasons. The first reason is we're a science-based organization, and all of the research is on the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. The second reason is because we get the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil versus the other oils, and that pans out to be about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and about 0.3 in MCT. And And I think I may have shared, but my typical routine, like I said, is to put about a teaspoon and a half of MCT in my coffee, and then to take a teaspoon and a half of the olive oil product.
Have you had anyone that has had too much of it? Like, could you tell, like, get any adverse effects? Someone went crazy and had too much?
So when the short answer is no. If you're not used to taking about a teaspoon of olive oil, MCT oil sometimes can be worse in this regard, then you can have some loose stool, right? Like Dave Asprey has this phrase I love. It's called disaster pants. We are not causing disaster pants with 1 teaspoon. So if you were to start day one with, a tablespoon, which is 3 teaspoons, or even 2 tablespoons, you would be right on the edge of disaster pants. But that is actually something your body resolves pretty quickly. It's just not used to having that oil, and your body will get used to it. You're kind of hinting, I think, and it's fair, is there danger point here, right? And we actually think that the toxicity of our product is related to the toxicity of olive oil, which involves drowning. So I don't know at some point, if you're consuming enough oil, you'll just start throwing it up because, right, your body is like, no, I'm done. Like, this is not good. Do you call that poisoning? I don't think so. I don't know. Like,
so any point in combining this with ketones, like exogenous liquid ketones, or is it not needed?
Yeah, I know that Anthony Kunkel, and I'll be honest, I don't know that much about ketones. Anthony Kunkel is a big proponent of our product, like a great ambassador. He is a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion. So he won a U.S. championship at 50 miles and then won a U.S. championship at 50K, which is 62 miles. And what he says about, and so he's trying everything. He's, in addition to being this kind of elite ultra athlete, he's also an elite ultra biohacker, right? So he's the one who's cycling on and off of stuff, taking notes. He's got a good journal to understand what's having positive impacts. Our first conversation was really fascinating because he said, Chris, I started off taking 1 serving. I didn't really notice anything. And then, like I joke, all good biohackers, he tripled the serving. And that's when I was blown away. And my thought about your product is, I believe your product could be the difference between somebody having a running as a hobby versus running as a career, which is, pretty profound. And he went on to say, I don't think that your product speeds recovery. I believe what it does, it prevents damage in the first place. And the reason he said that is because on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, which is a phrase you don't hear very often, where strength and stability previously were a problem, they're just no longer a problem. And he even shared with me over Instagram. He's like, Chris, I got to share. This is recent. I got to share. I did a 30-mile run. I came home. I was pretty wrecked, right? I went to sleep. I was pretty wrecked. I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. I was less wrecked, but still wrecked. And then when I got in the morning, I was just ready to train again. And
This is crazy.
I don't know that you call that speeding recovery. I like the concept. And again, if you go back to our boss theory, and maybe that's worth reiterating, I'll lean on you for that. But if you go back to that boss theory, if you're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, then, everything, you're going to have testimonials from head to toe.
That makes sense. Well, that's really great. What is the future of the product then? Just getting it out to more people, or are there new ones that you're working on too?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was having conversations today about directions that we could go. The reality is when you go to a biohacking conference, like less than 30% of people have heard of the molecule, right? If you get out into the general population, it's probably 0.1%, maybe 0.1% have heard of it. There's just so many more people who need to be made aware of this, that's our focus. Like, I don't need to come up with any sort of gimmicks to try and sell more or whatever. I'm trying to get this in more hands. I'm not trying to maximize the value out of an existing customer base. So, the goal is, come on, amazing podcast like yours, share the research. If people are interested, share a link so that they can find it. I'm actually having a longevity summit. We can talk a little bit about that. I'm relaunching that longevity summit in August. And so that I'm pretty excited about doing that. This is me digging in, understanding the industry, having great conversations. So I have a podcast called Live Beyond the Norms, and I'm having these amazing conversations. How do I turn around and share that knowledge with as many people as possible?
Okay. Well, where can people get the product, sample, or their first time buying? Where do they go?
Yeah. So we have a link for your audience. It's MyVitalC, C as in carbon. So myvitalc.com/finding genius. If they go to that page, they can get there's a $15 coupon on that page. You got to go to that page. So go to myvitalc.com/finding genius. And I give a couple pieces of advice when you land there. We already covered, we recommend olive oil because that's where the scientific research is. That's also where the higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule is. We offer a 25% discount to go on subscription, right? So even if you just want to try the product, take advantage of that discount, get on subscription. Our customer service team has about 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do that very, very well. Also, remember to use the coupon code that's on that landing page so that you can get an extra $10 off. Actually, it's $15 off. The other thing is I do have a book. The book is called Live Longer and Better. The book kind of outlines the discovery of this amazing molecule, which really started with theories of what was going on in space and then kind of ended up here in Houston where we're based at Rice University with a discovery of a Nobel Prize winning molecule. So it's a pretty fantastic story. And then the story of it getting into the health space and then again, my journey into the health space. You can get that book, Live Longer and Better, at Amazon and for $20, or you can buy it on our website. So it's not actually on that link, but use that link so you can get that coupon code and then use the menu structure to find the book. You can buy the book on our website also for $20, but for an additional $10, I will sign the book for you. And that full $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was about child sex trafficking. It's both a horrific movie and a really amazing movie. It's well done. And so 100% of the signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. And then there is one thing. We are relaunching this longevity summit. This is 55 experts in longevity, me querying them about the best tactics, the best ideas, the best processes in order to live longer and live healthier. And that website is longevitysecrets.myvitalc.com. And so they can find that. I think that link is also at the book. There's a book link called livelongerandbetterbook.com. So that might be the better one.
Okay, well, very good. Well, Chris, thanks for coming back and being so enthusiastic about everything and helping the listeners with that code. So again, thank you so much for being here again.
Richard, thank you so much. And I hope to hear, send me a text or something about any results with your pets and maybe some continued results with you. I love to hear, neutral, positive, whatever it is. I'm just kind of collecting data points.
Yeah, I know they're positive. I guess I'm just a weird case, but it's okay. So I'll let you know more shortly. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much, Richard.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.
We can talk a little bit about that. I'm relaunching that longevity summit in August, and so that I'm pretty excited about doing that. This is me digging in, understanding the industry, having great conversations. So I have a podcast called Live Beyond the Norms, and I'm having these amazing conversations. How do I turn around and share that knowledge with as many people as possible?
Okay. Well, where can people get the product, sample or their first time buying? Where do they go?
Yeah, so we have a link for your audience. It's MyVitalC, C as in carbon. So myvitalc.com/finding genius. If they go to that page, they can get there's a $15 coupon on that page. You got to go to that page. So go to myvitalc.com/finding genius. And I give a couple pieces of advice when you land there. We already covered, we recommend olive oil because that's where the scientific research is. That's also where the higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule is. We offer a 25% discount to go on subscription, right? So even if you just want to try the product, take advantage of that discount, get on subscription. Our customer service team has about 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do that very, very well. Also, remember to use the coupon code that's on that landing page so that you can get an extra $10 off. Actually, it's $15 off. The other thing is I do have a book. The book is called Live Longer and Better. The book kind of outlines the discovery of this amazing molecule, which really started started with theories of what was going on in space and then kind of ended up here in Houston where we're based at Rice University with a discovery of a Nobel Prize winning molecule. So it's a pretty fantastic story. And then the story of it getting into the health space, and then again, my journey into the health space. You can get that book, Live Longer and Better, at Amazon and for $20, or you can buy it on our website. So it's not actually on that link, but use that link so you can get that coupon code and then use the menu structure to find the book. You can buy the book on our website also for $20, but for an additional $10, I will sign the book for you. And that full $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was about child sex trafficking. It's both a horrific movie and a really amazing movie. It's well done. And so 100% of the signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. And then there is one thing. We are relaunching this longevity summit. This is 55 experts in longevity, me querying them about the best tactics, the best ideas, the best processes in order to live longer and live healthier. And that website is longevitysecrets.myvitalc.com. And so they can find that. I think that link is also at the book. There's a book link called livelongerandbetterbook.com. So that might be the better one.
Okay, well, very good. Well, Chris, thanks for coming back and being so enthusiastic about everything and helping the listeners with that code. So again, thank you so much for being here again.
Richard, thank you so much. And I hope to hear, send me a text or something about any results with your pets and maybe some continued results with you. I love to hear, neutral, positive, whatever it is. I'm just kind of collecting data points.
Yeah, I know they're positive. I guess I'm just a weird case, but it's okay. So I'll let you know more shortly. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much, Richard.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed. Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed. Or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.